Oh snap, we are on the road. It's been a long time, but here we are, MoodyTalk, traveling with my wife. That is right. And I am bringing up a topic to her, and that we shall talk about to share. Wife, Tanisha, say hey to the world, whoever's listening.
Hello, world.
So my question to you today is two questions. The first one is, why are you a Christian? And the second question is, what are some things that you believe separate people or turn people away from Christianity? First question still, why are you a Christian?
Why? I would have to backtrack first, I guess, because I'm still relatively young. I'm only 24. Growing up, I was made to go to church and participated in a lot of church activities and stuff, but I did not know, of course, really what it meant to have a relationship with Christ, a relationship with God either. All I knew was a bunch of rules. This is what you do. This is what you don't do. Christians don't do this. Christians don't do this. It was more like a list of don'ts versus what it meant to have, like, truly have a relationship. And when I got quote unquote saved, and the reason I say quote unquote is because I know that, since that time, which I was probably even a preteen, if that, I've done a lot of wrong, and not necessarily wrong in the eyes of the Lord, but I view sin as just not following God's life for God's plan for your life, because you can still do a lot of good things and still go to hell. So sin, I think, is anything that you do that's outside of God's will, especially if you've been convicted and you're continuing to do whatever it is that you want to do. But back to that, when I got quote unquote saved, I don't even know. I didn't really know what was going on. I just felt really compelled, and I'm a very emotional person. I just felt really compelled one day to go down to the altar, and before I knew it, not too long after that, I was being baptized. And when I came out of the water, somebody who's very close to me was there, and she was like, "Tell the Lord thank you." And I just, I said it, but I really had no idea what was going on until later on in life. So why I'm a Christian is because I feel like I've been through my moments of doubting too, like, why is this, why do people believe this, and how do I know that this religion is, what makes this religion better, and all this other kind of stuff. And that's not, and it's really not, when I reflect back on it, it's not because of any feelings that I have towards God or Jesus. It's more or less the influences I had, going on in my life. And like I said, when I was growing up, it was more like a list of don'ts rather than a relationship. And once I realized that it's about relationship, that drew me closer. And
over to our other question, which I feel like both of us agree is one of the factors of why people turn away from, Christianity, because people are instructed. Because for me, same situation, growing up in church, it was more so, telling you what you don't do, and that was pretty much the basis, to tell you what you don't do. You shouldn't do this, it's going to scare you, you're going to go to hell. But yeah, definitely it's about having that relationship. I heard you use that a lot. And for me, which I'm going to answer the question too, why am I Christian? And sometimes even older people, or modern Christians, as I like to call it, say this, but I have it in a deeper sense of when I say a personal relationship is why I'm a Christian. And for me, like I said, the same situation, grew up in a Baptist church, told a bunch of things not to do. My mother says I walked up there myself, but I know at that time I was between the ages of 8 to 10 or 12. So somewhere in that ballpark. So, afterwards, I didn't change who I was. It's just,
same thing.
I just accomplished something in church. That was pretty much what it was. It was an achievement to say you had enough confidence to go, allow yourself to get put in the water. But it was never a lifestyle change from that. But for me, why I say personal relationship is, a lot of times people say something about God speaking to you. And people mock that because they want or expect it to be like God personally coming, you hearing him through the clouds, or something loud and boisterous God saying to you. But really, from my experience alone, God speaks to you in the way that it opens your eyes the best. And for me, he spoke to me in dreams. And it started when I was 15. I had a dream about me preaching, and it was the 23rd Psalm. And in the dream, I was like breaking down the whole chapter, word, like pretty much verse by verse. And I don't remember what I said specifically, but I remember experiencing that whole sermon in my dream. And I was never a type of person who was thinking about, I never looked up to my pastor. I never aspired to be anything in the church specifically. I think around that time, I was trying to be a rapper. And that was the hardest thing I was trying to do. So for me to have that dream was something outlandish to me. But because I was still wanting to be a rapper, and my mother, it did influence me to want to do like a Christian song, but my mother instilled something in me saying that, you don't play with God. You're either going to do that or stick to rap. Like, don't do both. So because I never had an interest in trying to preach, or never thought I could, I turned away afterward in the back door and kept moving with life. And, time passed on. I want to say fast forward to my early 20s, 20 or 21, I started having dreams about preaching again, but this time it started becoming more consistent in different manners. Maybe I had a dream of me preaching to a demon, or I had a dream of me preaching like in the midst of like the apocalypse, or however we think the world's going to end, situations like that. And I started questioning it, because it was coming more like a nagging thing that I couldn't shake off of me this time. And I knew it was something specific, because like I said, I never personally would think about this on my own. It was not like any inkling or any desire for me to want to preach. And so the more that I started kind of accepting it, the more I started trying to understand it. And by doing so, I feel maybe around 22 is when I say that I became a Christian. And it was because that I felt God speaking to me. And from that, I wanted to learn about God. I wanted to have that personal relationship that you talked about, because I felt him reaching towards me. And in doing so, and then starting to read his word, telling me what I should be doing, reaching out back to him, and seeing that I wasn't doing it, made me want to venture into this relationship. because, you know, for me personally, it was deeper than how church made it seem. And so, which made me feel like, you know, going by the book made me start having, you know, feelings of how the church really acts. And that, once again, is a situation for another conversation. But that would be how I became a Christian. So the other question I wanted to ask is, I think I said it earlier, is what are some things that you feel is what separates or makes people turn away from Christianity? And I know we both agreed upon that, you know, I guess we would say the structure of the church, how they teach, just basically making it so impersonal of a relationship with God. And I'm not even going to start diving into it. I'll let you go first. I asked you first.
I'm saying, like, it's weird because the Bible is the truth, and it's like we read the Bible in church, but I don't feel like a lot of people are told the truth. Like, both of us are reflecting. It was like, it's more, you know, especially young children. It's more of, this is what you don't do. This is how you behave in church. You know, it's not, nothing is really mentioned. You know, we get told the Bible stories, you know, Noah and Jonah and all this stuff, but I really don't know. Nobody focuses on the relationship part or how to listen to God and how to hear God. And I know that before we've talked about, you know, it's a lot of preachers, aside from prosperity preachers, which is a conversation for a whole nother day.
Definitely.
Aside from prosperity preachers, a lot of preachers like throw out what me and my husband call Christian catchphrases,
yes.
which are not true. Like, we were talking the other night about the one that says favor isn't fair, or favor ain't fair, which is not true. Favor is fair. God gives you what you need according to, and the Bible says, you know, my grace is sufficient for your needs, and, you know, God will give you everything according to his riches and glory. Right. You don't need the same thing that somebody else needs. You're not going to live the same life that somebody else lives. And we're not supposed to compare. And we're all going to be at different stages and stuff like that. So, and some people try to do like a one-size-fits-all thing. And it's not, you know, God is for all of us, but all of us don't hear him the same way. He graces us in different ways.
It's funny how subliminally we make so many contradictions to God. You know, we talk about how God is perfect, you know, and he provides our needs, but like you said, we turn it into a one-size-fits-all. I like how you said that, because it made me think of, in Corinthians, it talks about how, you know, we are all the part of the body, and a part of this body, he gave each of us individual gifts. And so, you know, if him gives us all each individual and unique gifts, why do we think we're going to be blessed similarly? You know, why do we have such specific outcomes? And I really just think that's, like you said, is a product of catchphrases and the good part that we like to hear from the pastor, which makes me think biblically it talks about how we'll turn away from sound doctrine just to hear something that's soothing or sweet to our ears. But go ahead and continue.
And everybody doesn't need, like, and as a Christian, you have to accept the fact that you're going to suffer through something at some point, but there's a reason behind the suffering. So you might need, you know, God might see something that you need, that he needs to bring to your attention, so he's going to make you suffer in a different way than he's going to make me suffer. And it's just different. And I feel like one of the reasons that people are turned away, especially people who are, you know, biblically young, you know, young in the spirit, like the Bible talks about those who are drinking milk and then those who are eating meat. You're at a different level, and then to bring somebody, especially like I said, somebody who's young or new to it in there with all this confusing, honestly, and it's nothing that God did or nothing that Jesus did. It's the people who are supposedly, understanding and are, I hate to use the word veteran Christians, but that's the only thing I can think of right now.
Yeah.
Who are confusing these people and turning them away. And they don't realize how, I can't, I want to say, I hope they don't realize how much damage they're doing if they're supposed to be, recruiting or be fishers of men, to use the biblical reference. I don't think they realize how much damage they're doing. Like, they're hurting more than they're helping.
Definitely. Made me think of another Christian catchphrase, which is something personal towards me, is when they say cleanliness is next to godliness. And if it is in the Bible, I haven't found it, because I'm not going to sit here and say I've read the Bible word for word yet. I am venturing to finish it. But the reason I said it's close to me personally, because I am a minister. I became a minister in 2014. And growing up in a Southern Baptist church, for you to be any form of the clergy or official in the church means that virtually at all times you should be dressed in the most classiest apparel possible consistently. And for me, maybe it's because of my youth, or really I attribute it kind of more so between my youth, because as much as I like suits, I don't necessarily have a desire to wear it every day, every Sunday. But in scripture, Jesus talks about what people who don't have clothes to wear. And he said, look at the birds and the grass, how he's clothed and, fulfilled them and secured them. What makes you think that, why are you putting so much importance in that? Like, he won't take care of you. Something like that. I feel like I'm mixing two scriptures together right now. But he's like, take no mind for what you wear or what you shall eat.
Yeah.
And another one, when he talks about cleanliness in general, I know it was this part in the gospel where him and his disciples came in, and I don't know if they were coming in to eat or not, but whoever place they went into was upset because they didn't wash their hands. And so Jesus was relaying back to them, saying, don't you know what comes out the body isn't what defiles a man, but what goes in the body doesn't defile a man, but what comes out the body. And to me, that makes me think that my importance is bigger than how I look, which in a sense I do feel like you shouldn't look to the point where you're a distraction from other people from the spirit. But the importance is to get that person's connection and relationship to God. It's not about them revering me by how I look or my suit or whatever. So that's just how I feel about it. But there's so many, veterans, as you say, in the church that, will look at you, will rather attack me for down dressing versus anything else I could be doing that particular day or whatever. And that's one of the reasons that, definitely that they turn people away, because we don't think that there's other people who, if they don't come to church, why would we expect them to have what we call church clothes or professional attire? Some people like to come to church, as they are. And we should be able to reach them as they are. We shouldn't have to force them to say that, they're not right because of what they're wearing. Now, I mean, like I said, once again, it does attribute to what you wear being a distraction from others in the spirit. And so that, that can go, that's a whole nother discussion. But we don't focus on getting the person. We focus on the rules of what we've made, the rules of what we feel is right or wrong. And for me, a big thing for me, which is I feel like the ministry God's given me, is the activeness of what we are to do. as Christians. We don't teach that part. And in doing so, in the activeness, God tells us about, suffering. He talks about how if we are going to follow him, we pick up our cross and follow him. I know me and you talked about it earlier. And we missed the point that if he's telling us to be like him, and by doing so, picking up our cross to follow him, that when he carried his own cross, that was the most attacking part of his life, where he was, carried this weight on him for such a long road, being mocked, spit on, beaten, lashed, all these things up until his own death. He had to hold that, bear the cross until they put him on the cross. And so for us to do that, what makes us think that our road is going to be light? And I know it's strong, to say that, because now Christians are set up to believe that just coming into Christianity is like a benefits package. You commit yourself to them, and now you're starting to just add up enough prayers and worship services before God finally gives you a car. And that's how we look at it. It's like a insurance policy where if I come to church enough times, pray and worship, God will give me a new house and stuff like that. But it's about our everyday living. And the suffering part isn't to fear, but it's saying that there's people in this world that really hate the idea of Christianity. Whether or not we believe, some people just don't believe in it, or there's other people with other religions, because now across seas, there's martyrs in other areas of the world, which I don't know how. And somehow it seems like we think that America is the only place that has Christians. Because of a conversation with my cousin, he was like, well, what kind of religion would you have if you were born somewhere else? And, backtracking, Christianity, came overseas. Moses, story of Moses in the Red Sea was in Egypt. You have Jesus in Jerusalem, that area. So, and he tells us to spread out across the world. So because of these Christians in other parts of the world, they get attacked and killed just for being the Christian. So that's why it tells us to endure, because even Jesus himself was killed solely because he was hated for what he brought, what he was giving, which was God's true word, knowing that we as man, which we do now, is reflected in the Bible, showing that man twists what the word says into their own way or their own desires. So, but that's just, I kind of started rambling there, but so yeah, that's kind of some of what I feel. I feel like I have some more, but I can't think of it currently right now. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I think that covers
it. Okay. So, just wanted to do this podcast on the road to get this out, because for me personally, I feel like there's some people who, like I said, think that Christianity, or think that people now who are Christians are just someone who's slave to the culture, slave to the tradition. And I feel like it's good for other people to address how they become Christian, to show that this isn't a ritualistic thing. This isn't like a addition to a fraternity or sorority or cults or whatever. This is everyday people realizing God, finally seeing God in their own personal living. And I feel like if there's more true Christians that can make that a testimony publicly, we can start to at least open eyes to those who are stuck to the dogma of what they believe Christianity is. So, till next time, we're still on the road. The weather has been getting bad. I don't know if you would have been able to hear the rain when it was harder while we were talking. So, to the rest of this and to the rest of the world, good night. We love you. And punch him out with the music.